Cool. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining our quick presentation on Chinese Culture 101. In this presentation, we are going to go over some of the basic do's and do nots for Chinese culture for a fairly new traveler who's unaware of the culture ethics there. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background for Chinese culture. There are many different languages spoken in China, Mandarin, Manbei, Minnan, etc. The capital is Beijing, and there's other multiple populated cities like Shanghai, Guangzhou, etc. 47% of the population live in urban areas. It's also to be noted that China is the second largest economy in the world right after United States. With that being said, I'm going to hand it off to Matt.
Okay, so I'm going to discuss really briefly what to do. We're going to talk about trust, effective communication, long-term relationship, and the avenue for future partnerships. So when it comes to meeting etiquette, smiling and nodding are typical accepted greetings in China. A handshake will often be offered during official business meetings, but this must be initiated by your Chinese counterpart. Formal titles are an important part of addressing counterparts, and more importantly, senior leaders. This means stating the individual's title followed by their last name. For example, a manager, professor, etc. If the individual's title is unknown, using traditional terms such as madam or sir are acceptable. And plan to keep business cards handy and have them ready to hand out. One similarity between Chinese and American custom is the practice of small talk as a way to break the ice and build rapport. But the questions received may sound a little bit different. Questions such as, have you eaten and where have you been, are commonly heard questions in Chinese culture and can be considered the equivalent of how are you doing in American culture. Topics of conversation are another aspect of Chinese culture similar to that of American. Acceptable topics can include food, travel, and it is advised to keep the discussion generally positive, especially when discussing impressions of China and their culture. Conversely, it is considered impolite within Chinese culture to give negative responses or statements directly. So one of the cardinal rules is to try to avoid using the word no. Just don't use the word no.
In Chinese culture, it is important to relax, observe, and mimic observations around you in regards to dining etiquette. For seating, make sure senior leaders and elders sit first. Wait to be shown to your seat. Once food is on the table, again, make sure seniors and elders eat first. Leave food on your plate, and when the bill comes, the one who sent the invite pays. However, always fight for the honor to pay the bill and keep money private. Next slide, please. Continuing on with manners, when sitting down at the table, know that rice will always be served in a personal bowl. Sauces can be shared. Make sure you continue to show respect at the table and don't have your phone present. If you need a break, make sure to put your chopsticks to the side of your plate and don't stick them upright in the bowl. If given a gift, accept it with 2 hands and wait to open until permission is granted. Make sure to always give thanks. Next slide, please. Switching over in regards to cultural etiquettes on some things not to do. In regards to dining, when sitting down at a Chinese dinner, again, hitting on senior elders and leaders, don't go in and sit down without maintaining the order first. Again, in regards to eating, don't start eating before others, especially make sure that the elders and senior leaders eat first. And finally, don't finish all of your food before conversations have finished.
Next slide, please. Now we're going to talk about the dressing etiquettes. In China, it is urged that you avoid overly fashionable clothes. Conservative, simple, unpretentious clothes are encouraged. Men should wear sports coats and ties and open neck shirts in the summer, and women are expected to wear dresses or pantsuits for business occasions. Next slide, please. Business casual can also be worn in typical meetings. Just as the name suggests, we will want to look appropriate for casual settings. So open shirts, flats, night sandals, or heels. That does not, however, mean going for jeans, knickers, or unprofessional heels. With that being said, I'm going to give it off to Akua.
Continuing on what not to do, you have to be punctual at meetings. The Chinese don't, they respect being punctual, not being late. Do not leave the table, the meeting table, before the senior does. They have to stand up first before you stand up. And when there's a moment of silence, you have to wait for the host to break the silence before you do. Next slide. For political discussions, it is advised that you do not comment or say anything about the Taiwan, Tibet, and then human rights. It is polite and wise to always keep basic respect. Always also refrain from political issues unless you are asked. Next slide, please. The Chinese like to have common grounds, so they might ask certain questions that you are not used to. You should not be alarmed or do not overreact. They might ask you about your job. If you are married, about your family. You should take it calmly. And also never write in red ink, as it is seen as a form of severe protest or criticism. And these are our references. Thank you.
Are we still recording? Matt, we're